laws.
Thank you
They have
very
become
much.
police officers.
I don't
Thank
think
you.
you're
Now,
right,
now,
Mr.
now,
Singh.
now I open up 1 second. Interventions will come, rebuts will come on the other side, and I already have Mr. Subramaniam Swamy on his legs. Was 2G a justification of judicial activism? Mr. Swamy, your 3
First
minutes,
of all,
3 to 4 minutes.
First of all, are you going to give me as much time as you gave Mr. Singh?
I will give you.
Equal debate.
That question is asked as a politician, not as a lawyer.
As long as somebody from your side is willing to cut that. Go ahead, sir. Please go ahead, Mr. Swamy.
Well, first of all, this topic is framed in with loaded words. The words activism, compromise, these are loaded words, and I don't want to take up time explaining what the definitions of these terms mean. But it's a well-known fact that the Constitution is the supreme document, and all institutions draw their position and power from the Constitution. But the judiciary has been given the responsibility to interpret the Constitution. This responsibility is not with any other, whether it's executive or parliament and so on. They have no right to interpret the Constitution, only the judiciary can. So there's a very direct responsibility placed on the judiciary to intervene where the Constitution is not being followed. Now I have 4 questions. First is that if the government fails to act, then what does a citizen have by way of relief? I had filed a petition recently where I had written to the government saying that Ram Setu is an ancient monument and it should be recognized as an ancient monument and declared a national heritage monument. The government came to the court and said, we will not say yes, no, or be neutral. Now, how do I get relief? The only way I can get relief is by the court intervenes and says, as the court did, they said, if you don't take a stand, then we will hear Mr. Swamy and give our decision. So here is a case where the government is not doing its duty. It's not a question of the judiciary impinging on the government's activity. The government has abdicated, and therefore the judiciary has to see that my constitutional rights are protected. Second question, if there is something arbitrary and illegal, how do I rectify it? In the 2G matter which you mentioned, Mr. Raja issued a press release on 10th of January 2008 at 2:45 p.m. in which he said, which the press release said, that those who want licenses should come between 3:30 and 4:30, which is 45 minutes after that, with a demand draft of 1651 crore rupees. Now, I can't get a 1 crore demand draft in 10 days. How can anybody in 45 minutes get 1651 crores? Obviously, that some people had advance information. They had already got the demand draft and they were all ready. And some of them were in fact sitting in Mr. Raja's room. So they didn't even have to go to the building to deliver. Now, should not the government intervene? Such a huge loss was caused. And a minister called Mr. Kapil Sibal says that the loss was 0. People said he is not to be blamed because he doesn't know how to count beyond 0. Now, here in Tamil Nadu, the chief minister says my birthday is coming. So 1,451 hardened criminals who are serving life sentence for murder, rape and so on are to be released in celebration of my birthday. Now, either the chief minister has kinship with these 1,451, but he releases it. How do I stop it? I have to go to court and say that my fundamental right has been affected, and the courts have intervened and they are now considering the matter. So therefore, to say Lakshman Rekha, let me say here too, had Sita not crossed the Lakshman Rekha, Ravan would never have been killed. So sometimes crossing of Lakshman Rekha is necessary. Then there is a question of your rights being denied. During the state of emergency, which Mrs. Gandhi proclaimed as a constitutional measure, the Attorney General went to the court and said, we can now take the life of any person without a trial at all, which was totally against. But for the judiciary at that time, there would have been no sanity at all brought in the implementation of the emergency. So we owe the freedom that we have today, the luxury of freedom, to the judiciary intervention at that stage. Finally, the judiciary has done a great service to our country by limiting the amending power of Parliament. Earlier on, if two-thirds majority you had in Parliament, you could amend anything in the Constitution. In fact, you could declare anybody as a king or queen. There was some suspicion that Mrs. Gandhi was preparing to be declared as the Queen of India. And just before that, in 1973, the Supreme Court said, no, Constitution is above everybody else. Parliament is a creature of the Constitution. Parliament is not supreme. Anyone who says Parliament is supreme is wrong. And that Parliament cannot amend the Constitution beyond its shape. There is a basic structure, and that basic structure has to be maintained. So therefore, if this is what you call as judicial activism, and if this is what you call as compromise, very good, that's what we want.
Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, it can also be argued that you have used all the examples which you have used today. I can see that you stood up to respond. But all the examples you have used today are merely aberrations, which you are using today to pass a sweeping generalization on the system.
Give me an example which is not an aberration. Today, aberration is the rule, normality is the exception.
In that